Margaret Cathaoirleach. Minister, in my question to you, I make reference to 9,000 spaces that have been refused, that spaces of providers who have refused to accept any of the schemes that are available, and therefore the condition that they can raise the fees to parents is not applied to them. But what I'm seeking is clarity on the position of parents whose providers of childcare, and particularly parts of Dublin, which are really where spaces are really scarce, and there's a real problem for parents. If the provider does not accept any of the funding streams that you provide and charges the parents accordingly, what supports are available to those parents?
Thank you, Deputy Smith. And ensuring the availability and affordability of early learning and childcare for parents is a key priority of the Government. The transition fund that you referred to in your question is a temporary once-off scheme to support providers between the end of the employment wage subsidy scheme in April and the introduction of a new core funding scheme in September. And the primary objective of the transition fund is to ensure that fees to parents do not increase. And participation in the transition fund is optional, but I'm very glad to see that 96% of providers have signed up to it. 991 providers in Dublin are now participating, providing 43,541 places for children. The transition fund remains open to new entrants to sign up for the remaining months of operation, and city and county childcare committees are available to support providers who have not yet signed up. The transition fund requirement that fees remain at or below September 2021 levels continues in September under the new core funding scheme. And under core funding, partner services will also be required to offer the National Childcare Scheme and/or the ECCE programme to parents. And taken together, this will benefit parents by ensuring that the full affordability effects of the NCS are felt. This will give parents greater certainty about what they will be charged and prevent increases in NCS subsidies being absorbed by fee increases. The NCS is supporting thousands of families to offset their costs, and Budget 2022 has expanded access to the NCS. It's ended that practice of deducting time in preschool and school from the NCS subsidised hours, and it has also extended universal subsidies for children up to the age of 15. I do recognise, however, the burden of childcare fees for many families remains too high, and more needs to be done to ensure affordability. And the introduction of core funding from this September, combined with developments in the NCS, will improve affordability. But I've also made it very clear that in this year's budget, Budget 23, I will look to do more in terms of investment in the NCS.
Thanks, Minister. Your figures are interesting, but 96% signing up to the schemes is very good, but there's 4% who haven't. And the figures you give me is around 9,000 places in Dublin City and Cork and Limerick, but then there are also another 3,000, 12,000 nationally who've refused to sign up to any scheme and are free then to push up the cost to parents. So really what I'm saying is that that small percentage, and they come to my clinic and I'm sure to other people's clinic, desperate parents who have no other option for alternatives for childcare in their area, they're left high and dry. And if we're talking about 12,000 spaces, we're talking about a lot of desperate parents. So really, I just want to find out, where does this leave them and what supports you will give them to ensure that they don't drown, particularly in the current cost of living crisis, under the childcare costs that are being put up by providers who won't sign up to the scheme because they can not sign up to any scheme.
Well, we're providing significant new funding in terms of core funding, and this is the first year allocation is 221 million. We've also been clear that we're going to be putting additional money into the NCS. So we are making these schemes as attractive as possible to support providers in as much as possible, because, as I've said in answers, one of the three challenges we face is the sustainability of providers. We can't force providers into schemes, and that's always been something we've been clear about, but we are making these schemes as attractive as possible to providers in order to support them, in order for them to support their staff, in order for them to retain their staff, and in order for them to be able to improve delivery for childcare of childcare to parents. And I believe we are seeing strong take-up, as exemplified by that 96% in the transition scheme.
Yeah, I still maintain that you've got 12,000 places that providers haven't signed up to. and I suspect they are probably in the main the more commercial, bigger providers, but that isn't in the answer, so I can't elaborate on that. But we are still left, and this is the problem, with a dysfunctional, fragmented and piecemeal approach to childcare. And I know you're doing better than anyone has done before, but we are left open to the fact that we spend less on childcare in this state than any other EU state. And it is fragmented, privatised in the main, and it is a very difficult system to manage. So I maintain that what we need to do is to fund the parents where the scheme is not accepting the provisions that you allow and encourage them to take up, but the parents are being left high and dry in that situation. But in the long term, what's needed is a national early learning and childcare scheme. We wouldn't put up with this fragmented, privatised, dysfunctional system for our national schools or our secondary schools, but somehow we are putting up with it forever now in terms of early learning and childcare, and that is the real political problem here.
One of the key reasons we've linked the provision of core funding to services and the NCS is to ensure that we actually can get that agreement for the additional money being invested going to pay staff. Without some element of conditionality in terms of the money we're giving, we won't actually be able to guarantee that those enhanced levels of pay that are being negotiated now will actually be delivered to staff. So that's our mechanism in terms of delivering that. It's to link the NCS and core funding. And I think to do otherwise would be really to put at risk that opportunity to finally ensure that we can channel additional funding to delivering better pay for staff. But look, we'll continue to look at the wider element of the system. As you know, in the review of childcare, the expert group did discuss the issue of some element of public provision and indicated that further examination of that is worthwhile. That's certainly something that I agree with as well. But I think right now, in the context of the crisis we have right now, my focus has been to seek to address those three big challenges in the existing system.
Thanks, Minister.